I felt inspired to come on here and to talk about why we move our bodies, why we work out. And when I was at the gym about an hour ago, I had like this influx of messages pouring through, and it was like, share this, share this, share this. So I want to talk a little bit about my journey over the last couple of years in relationship to my body and moving my body and what I did in hopes that it will support you, and to give you some like introspection at the end to ask yourself these questions. So about a couple of years ago, I had a whole health and healing journey, holistic healing journey, and we don't need to get into that now. But what I do want to talk about is when my body was in crisis and screaming at me to make shifts. What happened is when I healed myself holistically from the inside out, this is where I was like, oh, there's a place to get to, right? And I'm like, oh, I have arrived, right? I healed my body. And then what happened is the next layer came through of like healing my emotional body, like healing my energy body, like healing my ethereal body, and so on and so forth. Like it just kept going. And this is the piece that I truly want to present, is that like our evolution never stops. And as we continue to heal and transform and to like really heal our relationship with ourselves through this body, through the vessel that we live in, so much shifts and so much more awareness comes in. And so what I wanted to talk about is a couple of years ago, I was in this space where I truly started to have a lot of introspection around the reason why I moved my body. And so much of it was through conditioning and programming of like what I need to look like, right? What my body needs to look like. And a lot of it was a form of self-punishment for myself. A lot of it was like, oh, I ate this thing, therefore I've got to do this workout. I've got to push myself. I need to look a certain way. And when I really unpacked it, a lot of my reasoning for moving my body for most of my life was through external validation, and or because I had a lot of self-loathing, like a lot. Like I love myself when I look like this. I love myself when I XYZ, do this thing, when I'm capable of doing this. And I completely have been unpacking that over the last couple of years. So what I did, just like everything else, I'm noticing, I don't know if this is everybody else's journey, but this is my journey. What I'm noticing is that, oh, FedEx is here. Maybe not. They're coming down the street. So what I noticed is whenever I come to a realization of like, ooh, I'm doing this out of a place of lack and lack of self-worth for myself and lack of love for myself and lack of wholeness, I go to the complete edge. And I really stopped moving my body in the way that I used to. And it took a lot of deep listening, and it took a lot of, right? Like, why am I wanting to do this thing? Like, why am I wanting to move? And my body has changed a lot. And it was like, I needed to unpack that foundation and get to the root of understanding why, in order for me to now come from this place of moving my body, from this place of love, from this place of like loving this vessel, loving my body, wanting to live a long life of vitality and nourishment and aliveness, and be there for my future children and for my spouse and for my family and for my clients and for my service and for my loved ones. It's very different. So now it's like, I love myself, period. Not I love myself when I look this way. I love myself when I work out, 7 days a week. And so it's like the devotion to myself is present now more than ever. And so my choices reflect that. Where before I was moving my body to fill a void, I was moving my body because I didn't love myself. And I thought that if I looked a certain way, I would love myself more. Or if I fit into the box of belonging, right? Of what society thinks I should look like, that I would also love myself more. And both were not true. I still felt I still felt incomplete. And it was because of the external validation and that internal lack of self-love. And so I just wanted to presence, like, being a growth oriented individual isn't always an easy route. And I still have moments, right, of noticing old patterns and conditioning and programming coming through. And I don't know if that will ever change, but I know what is true in my heart, and I know what I get to keep coming back to. And it felt so delicious this morning when I woke up and I was like, oh, I'm so excited to like move my body and sweat and lift heavy weights and push myself, and sometimes tomorrow I think I'm just going to be doing yard work with my husband and getting that vitamin D. And I'm excited to move my body in that way. Right. Like, so what I also want to just close with is, now I know it's important for me to move my body every day. Sometimes it's very light movement. Sometimes it's movement multiple times a day in various ways. Sometimes it's an hour intense workout and a walk with my dog. Sometimes it's doing a gentle workout or stretching in my backyard. But it's like, I'm following the energy of like, okay, how do I feel? And what does my body need? So now I actually have this ability to listen to my body, and I'm not overexerting myself and pushing myself and creating more burnout, right? Creating more depletion, because that's also what I was doing. I was totally burning out my adrenals in the way that I used to work out. And it was because I thought I needed to look a certain way. So my question for you is, right? It's like, when we're eating something, when we're moving our bodies, like the decisions that we make for our wellness, vitality, health, aliveness, right? Can we think about like, why are we actually doing this? Is this from a place of love, or is this from a place of lack? And it's a tough pill to swallow, because many of us, unfortunately, are making decisions from a place of lack. And the amount of liberation and like freedom that has now been freed up and in my being, like in this vessel, because I've done this contemplation and introspection with myself and like my wounding, right? And like unpacking that, it is amazing. And I feel so delicious. And I'm exploring more, like rollerblading and just doing fun things, doing things I wouldn't normally do, right? So like, I don't put myself in a box anymore that I need to work out this number of days a week and at this time. And like, the discipline comes from the love, not from the lack. Like, it's the devotion to myself first, and then the discipline is a byproduct of my devotion to myself, my love for myself. And when I was putting myself in this box, in this structure, in this, like, it was all just like lack, and I've got to force it, and I've got to do it this way. And it just wasn't working. And it was pulling me further and further and further and further from myself. So I hope this supports you. Just a little question for you to chew on and to ask yourself, and give yourself lots of grace, because a lot does come up, especially as women in relationship with our body. A lot of stuff comes up. And so that's why it's taken me, I think it's taken me like almost 2 years to get to this place. And there's still so much work to do, but I'm not attached to it. It's like, yeah, of course, like, look at what society presents to us in the form of what we need to look like, but we are so much more than this body. And it always comes back to the come from, and it always comes back to our relationship with ourselves. So now, right, like, I eat something from a place of love, not from a place of lack. And so I actually have this ability now to also eat things that I would never normally eat, because I would tell myself that they're bad, right? So there's like, it totally peels back the layers more, and like, what is right and wrong? What is good and bad? Is this from, stemming from love, or is this stemming from lack? Would love to know what's opening up for you here. Just wanted to share a little bit of my journey and me kind of still being in the middle of it, but coming out on the other side and feeling, feeling so liberated and wanting that for the world. Would love to know if this is supporting you. Would love to know what's opening up for you. And per usual, just sharing my experience, my vulnerable experience, in hopes that this could support someone in this moment. Mwah.